Clearly, we want her out there. I think she draws so much attention, and she's a phenomenal player. But at the same time, I think it's a great time for her to learn from the sidelines.
The WNBA shocked fans 2 minutes ago by ejecting superstar Caitlin Clark, which caused teammate Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull to react violently. The arena shook, voices thundered, and tempers flared as these fierce defenders refused to keep quiet. But what specifically set off this fiery confrontation? And why did the league abandon its most promising player? Today, we delve deeply into the drama, the unadulterated feelings, and the struggle that could destroy women's basketball. This is the startling ejection that rocked the WNBA right now. Everything happened in an instant, a startling event that nobody anticipated, but that everyone will be discussing for weeks to come. Following a contentious and hotly contested call by the referees, Caitlin Clark, the undeniable WNBA superstar, was abruptly ejected from an important, high-stakes game. Clark is a game changer, so this wasn't just any player being sidelined. She has revolutionized women's basketball and is well known throughout the world for her amazing court vision, fearless three-point shooting, and thrilling style of play. She has emerged as the bright spot of the league's rapid expansion, drawing sizable audiences, breaking records, and inspiring hordes of new supporters worldwide. But that night, Clark was punished in the most severe manner imaginable rather than being given the respect and safety that a celebrity of her caliber deserves. From the beginning, there was a tense atmosphere in the arena. Both sides were making aggressive moves, subtle fouls, and rough plays, but many of them seemed to get away with it. The tension reached a boiling point after a heated verbal exchange. Clark was forced to leave the court, walk off in stunned silence, and retreat to the locker room after the referees handed her second technical foul without hesitation. The crowd, which had been giddy with anticipation, was abruptly silent, stunned and perplexed by the sudden change in circumstances. However, the quiet was short-lived. Clark's teammates soon became enraged. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull were the two players who immediately stood out. These ferocious warriors would not remain silent. They voiced their demand for justice and refused to allow their star player's dismissal to go unnoticed. Caitlin has always been protected on the court by Sophie Cunningham, who is renowned for her fiery spirit and unshakable loyalty. She has a black belt in Taekwondo, so fighting is nothing new to her, and she doesn't hesitate to defend her teammates. Lexi Hull stood beside Sophie, equally passionate and unwavering, prepared to stand up for what they both perceived as a serious injustice. Together, they emerged as a strong voice of opposition to what many saw as an unjust and detrimental blow to the player who has done so much to improve the league's standing. However, this was more than a technical foul or an abrupt ejection. It came to represent all the deeper tensions that were simmering beneath the surface, acting as a lightning rod. It brought to light the ongoing difficulties Caitlin Clark encounters each time she takes the court. Her exceptional skill has elevated the league to new levels, but it has also made her a target. In actuality, the drama is just getting started and is far from finished. The world's eyes are fixed on this developing story, eager to see what will happen next. This explosive moment set off a fierce battle. The WNBA's future is now under threat from Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull's defiant stance, which also calls for justice for Caitlin Clark. The WNBA must make a crucial decision as Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull vigorously defend Caitlin Clark. Will the league risk losing its biggest star in women's basketball's future, or will it finally protect her? Let's learn how their audacious stance sparked a league-wide uprising. Standing fiercely on the hardwood, something strong ignited on the bench behind Caitlin Clark as she slowly left court. Her expression, a mixture of shock and intense pain. Her devoted friend and fierce teammate, Lexi Hull, was so frustrated that she could no longer control herself. Abruptly, she leaped to her feet, arms flung wide, her eyes blazed with incredulity and rage. Her voice was like a thunderclap, cutting through the tense silence in the arena. "It's a joke. Keep your star safe." It was more than just a yell. It was a passionate plea for justice that resonated with all of the viewers who were yearning for respect and justice. Her teammates hurried over to try to calm her down and put out the fire that was burning inside of her. However, Lexi's enthusiasm spread like wildfire. It could not be subdued or disregarded. She was determined that this moment would not be forgotten or dismissed as merely another aspect of the chaos of the game. Sophie Cunningham stood firmly and steadily next to her, quiet but ferocious. There were no shouting or raised fists, just steady words bearing the weight of unshakable loyalty and calm eyes full of burning resolve. Together, Lexi and Sophie formed a formidable barrier against both coaches and referees. They fought with spirit, heart, and unwavering conviction rather than with fists. Their message was strong and unambiguous. Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham would support Caitlin Clark at all costs if the league refused to defend her. Clearly shaken by such a daring challenge, the referees threatened to expel both players for challenging their rulings. However, Lexi remained composed and unflinching as she stared back at them, silently challenging them to move forward. Her bravery was unwavering. She refused to give up. The Indiana Fever ceased to be just another basketball team playing a typical game that evening. They came to represent defiance, ferocious allegiance, and unwavering solidarity. There was more going on that court than just basketball. It was a battle for safety, respect, and the essence of women's basketball. The team's defiant cry was echoed by the growing roar of the crowd. One indisputable truth was shouted by every angry glance and shout. At last, Caitlin Clark's days of facing the storm by herself were over. A strong revolution was sparked by Lexi Hull and Sophie Cunningham's fierce stance. They vowed to defend Caitlin Clark at all costs and alter the course of women's basketball forever because they were no longer willing to remain silent. So how did a revolution in women's basketball start as a result of Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull's fierce stand following Caitlin Clark's shocking ejection? What does their fearless battle against injustice signify for the league's future? Let's find out the whole truth. Indianapolis's breaking point to mayhem that broke out on that memorable night in Indianapolis wasn't an isolated incident. It was a culmination of an issue that had been simmering throughout the entire season. For months, Caitlin Clark had been subjected to cruel treatment on the court. Sharp pokes near her eyes, forceful shoulder checks, elbows slammed into her ribs, and blatant fouls that the referees failed to call. However, the league's officials hardly ever intervened to shield her from the increasing physical abuse. It was Caitlin who was being silenced this time, not the other way around. Rather than being punished for playing aggressively, she received technical fouls simply for raising her voice and voicing her annoyance, for merely responding to the situation. Both Caitlin and her closest allies on the court were deeply affected by the injustice of it all. Her closest teammates and fiercest defenders, Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull, witnessed the injustice. When Caitlin was a